Picture this, it's 1533 and you're standing in the draughty halls of Greenwich Palace, where the air smells of damp stone and burning tallow. The court's buzzing, but it's not the good kind of buzz, more like the tense hum of a beehive about to swarm. King Henry VIII, all bluster and beard, is pacing desperate for a son to carry his name. His new wife, Anne Boleyn, sharp as a blade and twice as bold, is in labour. Everyone's holding their breath expecting a prince. But when the midwives finally emerge, they're quiet. No trumpets, no cheers. It's a girl. They name her Elizabeth, and let's just say the room feels like someone dropped a lead weight. A daughter. In a world obsessed with male heirs that's about as welcome as a tax collector on harvest day. But you're looking at this tiny bundle with her tuft of fiery red hair, and you can't help but notice her eyes sharp. Curious, like she's already sizing up the world. She's got her father's Tudor grit and her mother's defiant spark. Nobody knows it yet, but this kid born into a court that sees her as a disappointment is going to rewrite the rules of an empire. For now, though, she's just a baby wrapped in linen that's nowhere near as soft as you'd expect for royalty. The court's already whispering, a girl. What use is that, Anne, though she's fierce about her daughter cradling her like she's a treasure, not a failure? A few loyal servants nod along, but most of the nobles are already plotting their next move. Fast forward a couple of years, and things go from bad to catastrophic. You're still in Elizabeth's world, but it's darker now. She's not even 3 when the axe falls literally. Anne Boleyn, once the queen who turned England upside down, is accused of adultery and treason. The charges are flimsy, cobbled together by men who want her gone, but Henry's not in the mood for mercy. Anne's dragged to the Tower of London, her silk gown swapped for cold stone walls. You can almost hear the creak of the scaffold as the sword swings. Just like that, Elizabeth's mother is gone, her head rolling in the straw. The court doesn't even pause to mourn. They're too busy rewriting history. Elizabeth, barely old enough to talk, is suddenly a nobody. Declared illegitimate, she's stripped of her princess title faster than you can say Tudor temper. Her royal cradle's packed away, and she's shipped off to the countryside where the air smells of wet earth and neglect. You're following her now, a toddler in a scratchy wool dress moved from one musty manor to another. She's watched more than loved her red hair, a reminder of the scandal she came from. Servants whisper when they think she's not listening. Her mother's a traitor. Her father's a tyrant. Yet Elizabeth, even this young, doesn't cry or cling. She watches. She listens. Her world's a mess, but her mind's already a fortress. Henry, her father, is a distant storm cloud, marrying and discarding wives like old cloaks. You see Elizabeth catching glimpses of him, his booming voice, his heavy tread, but he's not exactly tucking her in at night. His new queens come and go, some crowned, some beheaded. Elizabeth learns early that love is a luxury and power is a blade that cuts both ways. She's shuffled between households, her royal blood keeping her fed, but her mother's ghost keeping her in danger. The court's a snake pit, and she's just a child caught in its coils. But here's where it gets interesting. Even in this chaos, Elizabeth's not fading. She's got tutors now the best Henry's money can buy, and they're stunned by her. You're peeking over her shoulder as she scratches Latin verbs on a slate, her small hands steady. She's devouring French philosophy, even the stories of ancient Rome Empire saints kings. Her mind's like a sponge soaking up every word, every lesson. By the time she's 6, she's writing letters that make grown scholars blink. It's not just brains, though. It's something deeper. She's learning what power costs, what silence can protect. The girl who was born a failure is shaping herself into something nobody expects, not a princess, but a force. And somewhere deep inside you can feel it, the spark of a queen is starting to glow. So before you drift off, hit that like button if you're enjoying this tale of a girl who beat the odds. Comment where you're watching from, maybe a cozy bedroom or a late-night train. Next, we'll follow Elizabeth as she grows dodging danger and sharpening her wits in a court that's anything but kind. For now, let the soft hum of history carry you to sleep, knowing this kid's got a long road ahead, and she's ready for it. You're back in Elizabeth's world, and it's the 1540s now. The air's thick with the scent of candle wax and intrigue, and you're trailing a teenage Elizabeth, maybe 13, her red hair tucked under a plain cap. She's no longer the forgotten toddler in the countryside. She's a young woman in a court that's as unpredictable as a winter storm. Henry VIII. Her father is still king, but he's a shadow of his former self, bloated, temperamental, his leg ulcers stinking through the velvet. You can feel the tension in the palace where every smile hides a knife. Elizabeth's learned to move carefully like a deer in a wolf's den, her sharp eyes catching every glance, every whisper. Her education's her lifeline, and you're watching her soak it up like it's air. She's hunched over books in a chilly room, the fire spitting embers as she translates Greek poetry or debates Cicero with her tutors. Her Latin's flawless, her French so smooth you'd swear she was born in Paris. She's not just learning for show, it's armour. Knowledge is the one thing nobody can take from her, not even her father, who barely acknowledges her existence. She's read about queens who fell kings who betrayed, and she's filing it all away. You can see it in her posture, straight controlled, like she's already practicing for a crown she doesn't dare dream of. But the court's no place for dreams. Henry's dead by 1547, and the throne passes to Elizabeth's half-brother Edward, a sickly boy of 9. You're at Edward's coronation, the abbey heavy with incense and ambition. Elizabeth's there, quiet in the shadows, her plain dress a stark contrast to the noble's glittering robes. She's 16, and she's mastered the art of being invisible. Edward's Protestant advisers watch her closely, but she keeps her head down, her words few. She knows one wrong move could brand her a traitor. You're starting to admire her, aren't you? The way she listens, learns weights like a chess player who sees 10 moves ahead. Then the real trouble hits. Edward dies young and the crown lands on Mary Elizabeth's half-sister. You're in London now, 1553, and the city's a tinderbox. Mary's fiercely Catholic, her eyes burning with faith and suspicion. Elizabeth raised. Protestant is suddenly a walking target. You can feel the shift, the air sour with fear, the streets echoing with the clatter of soldiers' boots. Mary's court is a maze of paranoia, and Elizabeth's caught in it. Whispers call her a heretic, a threat, a pretender to the throne. Some nobles want her dead, others want her as a pawn. You're holding your breath as she navigates it. Her face calm, but her mind racing. In 1554, a rebellion against Mary sparks chaos. It's called Wyatt's Rebellion, and though Elizabeth swears she's innocent, her name gets tangled in the plot. You're with her when the guards come, their armour clanking in the dawn. They haul her to the Tower of London, the same grim fortress where her mother lost her head. The stone walls close around her, cold and unyielding, the air heavy with mildew and dread. You can hear the ravens croaking outside the distant splash of the Thames. Elizabeth, just 20, is locked in a cell, her fate hanging by a thread. Every creak of the door could mean execution. But here's where she shines. You're watching her write letters to Mary, her quill steady despite the fear. Her words are careful, denying treason with just enough humility to avoid arrogance. She cries when the guards are watching, but alone she's steel. You can almost see her mind working, calculating every word, every gesture. She's not loud or defiant. She's smart. Her silence is her shield, her clarity her sword. Weeks drag on, and the tower's silence is deafening, broken only by her soft prayers. You're rooting for her, aren't you? This young woman alone against a world that wants her broken. Finally the gates open. Mary releases her not out of love, but because Elizabeth's too clever to condemn and too dangerous to kill. You're walking with her as she steps out, the spring air sharp with the scent of wet grass and freedom. She's thinner, paler, but her eyes are brighter than ever. The tower didn't break her, it forged her. She's no longer just a princess with a claim she's a survivor, sharpened by suspicion, ready for whatever comes next. England's not hers yet, but you can feel it, her time's coming, and she's been preparing for it her whole life. Before you close your eyes, hit subscribe if you're loving this story of Elizabeth's grit. Drop a comment, where are you right now? A quiet cafe maybe, or under a blanket. Next up, we'll dive into her coronation and the bold choices that start her reign. For now, let the rhythm of history lull you, knowing this woman's just getting started. You're in London, November 1558, and the city's holding its breath. The air's crisp, heavy with wood smoke and the faint tang of mud from the Thames. Bells toll slow and solemn, echoing through the narrow streets. Queen Mary's dead, and England's a ship without a rudder, torn by religious strife, bled dry by war, and staring at a future no one's sure of. You're standing among the crowd, your boots sinking into the churned-up dirt as whispers ripple through Elizabeth's next. That name, once spoken in hushed fear, now carries a spark of hope. The woman who survived the tower, who outsmarted her enemies, is about to take the crown. You can feel the weight of it already, can't you? Elizabeth's 25, and you're catching sight of her as she rides through the capital on a white horse, her red hair catching the weak winter sun. The crowd's roaring, tossing caps into the air, their breath fogging in the cold. She's radiant, her face composed, but her eyes alive, drinking in every cheer, every kneel in the muck. You'd think she's been queen her whole life, the way she carries herself, straight-backed calm like she's already mapped out the next 40 years. But inside you know she's carrying the scars of her past, a beheaded mother, a childhood in exile, a stint in the tower's cold grip. This moment's been brewing since she was born, and she's ready to seize it. Her coronation's a spectacle, and you're there. January 15, 1559, packed into Westminster Abbey. The air's thick with incense, the kind that clings to your clothes and makes your head swim. Elizabeth steps forward draped in white and crimson velvet, her gown glittering under the flickering torchlight. The ancient arches loom overhead, carved with the ghosts of kings, and you can't help but notice how small she looks beneath them, yet how steady. The crown's placed on her head, heavy with gold and expectation, and the choir's voices rise, filling the stone with a sound that feels like it could crack the heavens. You're watching history shift and it's giving you chills. But being crowned's one thing, ruling's another. You're following Elizabeth now as she steps into a kingdom that's a mess. England's treasury's emptier than a beggar's purse, the French and Spanish are circling like wolves, and half the country's still reeling from Mary's Catholic purges. Protestants and Catholics are at each other's throats, and nobody's sure a woman can hold this fractured land together. You're in her council chamber, the air stale with parchment and wax as she gathers her advisers. William Cecil's there, steady as an oak, his eyes sharp behind his beard. He's her rock, the man who'll help her navigate this storm. Others like Nicholas Bacon bring brains and loyalty. Elizabeth listens, her fingers tapping the table, but you can tell she's not here to be led, she's here to lead. Her first big move, the Church of England. You're watching her thread a needle nobody thought could be threaded. She breaks from Rome again, but she's not her father burning heretics or smashing altars. She's careful crafting a middle path, a Protestant church, with enough Catholic trappings to keep the peace. You can't help but admire her restraint. It's like she's playing chess while everyone else is swinging axes. No mass executions, no fire and brimstone crusades. She wants stability, not fanaticism, and you're nodding along, impressed by her cool head, in a world that's anything but. And then there's the marriage talk. You're in the privy chamber, the fire crackling when her advisers bring it up again. You need a husband. Your Majesty. They say their voices dripping with urgency. Princes from Spain, dukes from France, even some German noble with a name longer than a winter night. They're all lining up, each one a diplomatic prize. You're waiting for her to blush or waver, but Elizabeth just smiles, that sharp knowing smile that's starting to become her trademark. I am bound to a husband, she says, her voice clear as a bell, and that is the Kingdom of England. You're grinning now, aren't you? She's not just dodging the question, she's rewriting the rules. A woman alone ruling a man's world, and she's not backing down. This is Elizabeth's England now, and you're feeling the shift. The court's buzzing with new energy, the streets alive with cautious hope. She's young, untested, but every move she makes screams control. You're hooked, wanting to see how she'll handle the vipers at court, the enemies abroad, the endless pressure to marry. Before you drift off, hit that like button if you're rooting for this queen who's just getting started. Drop a comment. Where are you listening from? A late-night couch maybe, or a quiet park bench? Next, we'll dive into the marriage game and the one man who almost changed her mind. For now, let the steady rhythm of her reign carry you to sleep. You're still in Elizabeth's England, the early 1560s, and the court's a glittering trap, all silk and scheming under the candlelight. The air smells of lavender and ambition, and you're standing close enough to hear the rustle of Elizabeth's gown as she moves through the room. She's in her late 20s now, her face a study in control, pale sharp, with those eyes that miss nothing. The crown's settled on her head, but there's one question that's louder than any cannon: who's she going to marry? You're leaning in curious, because this isn't just about love, it's about power alliances and whether England stays free or becomes a pawn in someone else's game. The marriage talk's relentless. You're in a stuffy council meeting, the kind where the air's thick with ink and old men's coughs. Parliament's practically begging her to pick a husband. An heir. Your Majesty, they drone as if she hasn't heard it 1,000 times. Foreign courts are sending suitors like they're auditioning for a play Philip II of Spain, who was married to her sister Mary. Archduke Charles of Austria, stiff as his starched ruff. Even Francis, Duke of Anjou, with his French charm and questionable moustache. Each one's a diplomatic tightrope. Marry a Catholic and Protestants riot. Marry a foreigner, and England's sovereignty takes a hit. You're watching Elizabeth listen, her fingers tracing the arm of her chair, and you can tell she's playing a long game. She doesn't say no outright. That's not her style. You're catching her at a banquet, the table's groaning with roasted peacock and spiced wine, as she dances with some foreign envoy. Her laugh's bright, her words teasing, but her eyes are calculating. She keeps these suitors dangling, promising just enough to keep their king's hopeful trade deals, peace treaties, maybe a wedding someday. It's a masterclass in diplomacy, and you're almost laughing at how she's got half of Europe wrapped around her finger. But you know the truth, she's seen what marriage does to queens. Her mother lost her head, her sister lost her grip. Elizabeth's not about to let her husband steal her throne. Then there's Robert Dudley. You're in the gardens at Whitehall, the air heavy with roses and secrets, and you see him tall, handsome, with a smile that could charm the stars down. He's Elizabeth's childhood friend, her master of the horse, and the one man who makes her laugh like she's not a queen. They're walking together, her hand brushing his arm, and the court's buzzing like a kicked hive. You're picking up the whispers. They're too close. He's beneath her. And then scandal hits Dudley's wife. Amy dies, falling down a staircase in a way that screams suspicion. The rumours explode. Did he kill her? Is Elizabeth in love? You're watching her face, and for once it's unreadable. She sends Dudley away, but you can see the cost in her eyes. You're back in her privy chamber now, the fire-casting shadows on the tapestries. Her advisers are pushing hard, marry Dudley or marry someone. But Elizabeth's not budging. You're starting to get it. She's not just avoiding marriage, she's turning it into a weapon. By staying single, she keeps England hers, no king to overshadow her, no consort to divide her court. She's crafting a new identity, one you can feel taking shape, the Virgin Queen. You're at a masque, the room swirling with music and masked dancers when she steps out draped in pearls, her gown shimmering like moonlight. The courtiers gasp, and you realise she's not just a monarch, she's a myth in the making, untouchable divine. This choice, though, it's not easy. You're alone with her. Late one night, the palace quiet, except for the creak of floorboards. She's staring into the fire, her face bare of its usual paint, and you see the weight of it, the loneliness, the fear of a throne without an heir. She's seen her father's dynasty teeter on succession. She knows the risks. But you also see her resolve hard as iron. I will not share my crown, she once said, and you believe her. She's England's bride, and no man, not even Dudley, will change that. Before you slip into sleep, hit that subscribe button. If Elizabeth's defiance has you hooked. Comment where you're at. Maybe a rainy window seat, or a midnight desk. Next we'll step into her golden court where art and ambition dance under her watchful eye. For now, let the soft glow of her legend lull you, knowing this queen's playing a game no one else can match. You're stepping into the heart of Elizabeth's England, the 1570s, and the court's as dazzling whirlwind like a tapestry come to life. Picture Whitehall Palace. Its halls aglow with torchlight, the air rich with the scent of beeswax and crushed herbs underfoot. You're brushing shoulders with courtiers in ruffled collars and velvet robes, their jewelled sleeves catching the light like stars. Elizabeth, now in her 40s, is the sun at the centre of this orbit. Her presence commands every glance, every whisper. You're watching her, her face powdered pale, her red hair woven with pearls as she glides through the room. She's not just a queen, she's a performance, and you're hooked on every move. This court's more than a government, it's a stage, and you're in the front row. The walls are hung with tapestries of mythical beasts, the tables piled with gilded plates and spiced wine. Musicians pluck lutes in the corner, their notes weaving through the chatter like a soft breeze. But beneath the shimmer, it's a chessboard. Every courtier's playing for her favour, and Elizabeth the master of the game. You see her tilt her head, her smile sharp as a blade, as she banters with a young noble. He's blushing, thinking he's won her eye, but you know better, she's dangling him like a lure, keeping him loyal without giving an inch. The court's alive with art and ambition, and you're soaking it in. Poets like Edmund Spenser are scribbling verses that call her Gloriana a goddess queen. You're peeking at a painter's canvas where Elizabeth's face glows ageless, surrounded by pearls and celestial globes. It's not flattery, it's propaganda, and she's directing every stroke. You hear whispers of a new playwright, William Shakespeare, whose early works are starting to ripple through London's theatres. His stories of ambition and betrayal. They're practically ripped from the court's playbook. Elizabeth's nurturing this golden age, and you can feel the energy like the air before a storm. But it's not all poetry and pageants. You're in a quieter corner now where the air's thick with intrigue. Rivalries simmer like a pot about to boil over. Courtiers like Robert Dudley, her old flame, strut with confidence, but others like the dashing Walter Raleigh are rising fast. You catch a glance between two nobles, one's hand twitching near his dagger. Elizabeth encourages this dance. She wants them competing, not conspiring. You're impressed by her finesse, the way she raises men up, then clips their wings if they fly too high. The Earl of Essex, young and cocky, is starting to catch her eye, but you know she'll keep him on a leash. Her advisors are her backbone, and you're slipping into a council meeting, the room heavy with parchment and tension. William Cecil's there, her most trusted man, his beard grey but his mind sharper than ever. He's the steady hand behind her throne, mapping out policies while she dazzles the court. Francis Walsingham, her spymaster, lurks in the shadows, his ears catching every plot from Paris to Madrid. You're getting a chill just thinking about his network spies in every port, letters cracked open before dawn. Elizabeth's not just ruling, she's orchestrating, and you're marvelling at how she keeps this glittering chaos in check. Life here's a spectacle, and you're at a masque, the room swirling with masked dancers and flickering candles. Elizabeth's at the centre, her gown a cascade of gold leading a dance that's half ritual, half power play. The court's vibrant, but you notice her makeup's thicker now, her movements a touch slower. She's still magnificent, but the mask of youth is work to maintain. You're starting to see the cost of her performance, the late nights, the endless scheming, the weight of a crown that never comes off. Yet she never falters, and you're rooting for her, this woman who's turned her court into a mirror of her will. Before you drift off, hit that like button if this golden court's got you enchanted. Drop a comment, where are you now, a cosy attic maybe, or a late night bus. Next, we'll face the shadow of Mary Queen of Scots, a rival who tests Elizabeth's heart and crown. For now, let the soft glow of her court lull you, knowing this queen's playing a game where losing's not an option. You're in the late 1560s, and Elizabeth's England feels like a tightrope stretched over a pit of vipers. The court's still dazzling, but there's a shadow growing, and you're sensing it in the hushed tones, the guarded glances. That shadow has a name, Mary Queen of Scots, Elizabeth's cousin, and a threat like no other. You're standing in a draughty castle corridor, the air sharp with wood smoke and secrets as whispers reach you. Mary's Catholic widowed, and some say she's the rightful Queen of England. You're feeling the weight of this rivalry, and it's heavier than any crown. Mary's story's a tragedy all its own, and you're catching glimpses of it. She's young, fiery, with a charm that could melt stone. Once Queen Consort of France, she ruled Scotland until her nobles turned on her. You're picturing her fleeing across the border in 1568, her silk gown torn, her dark hair wild, expecting Elizabeth's protection. But you know Elizabeth's no fool. Mary's not just a cousin, she's a magnet for every Catholic rebel in Europe. You're in Elizabeth's privy chamber, the fire crackling as she wrestles with this. Let Mary roam free, and she's a spark in a powder keg. Lock her up, and you risk alienating half the continent. You're admiring her caution, aren't you? She's playing a game where every move's a gamble. So Mary becomes a guest or prisoner, depending on who's talking. You're following her to a string of English castles, each one a gilded cage. The walls are stone, the tapestry's rich, but the guards never leave. Mary's got her own court, ladies-in-waiting musicians, even a chef, but you can smell the confinement like damp wool and barred windows. She's writing letters, her quill scratching late into the night, and you're uneasy because those letters are finding their way out, smuggled in wine barrels or sewn into skirts. They're reaching Catholic nobles, Spanish spies, men who dream of Elizabeth's head on a pike, and Mary's on the throne. You're starting to feel the noose tightening. Elizabeth's trying to keep the peace, and you're watching her balance act. She believes in the divine right of queens. How can she harm one of her own? You're in her study, the air heavy with ink and wax as she reads. Reports from Walsingham's spies. Plots are blooming like weeds, the Rodolphi plot, the Throckmorton plot, each one whispering Mary's name. You're holding your breath as Elizabeth hesitates, her pen hovering over orders she doesn't want to write. She's not heartless. She pities Mary, maybe even admires her. But you know pity's a luxury a queen can't afford. Then in 1586 the Babington plot cracks it all open. You're with Walsingham's men as they intercept letters, Mary's own words clear as day approving Elizabeth's assassination. The evidence is ironclad, and you're in the council chamber, the air thick with dread as Elizabeth faces it. Her face is pale, her hands steady but trembling just enough to notice. She signs Mary's death warrant, then tears it up, then signs again. You're feeling her anguish. This isn't just politics, it's personal. Mary's royalty family a mirror of what Elizabeth could have been. But the throne comes first, and you know it. February 8th, 1587, Fotheringhay Castle. You're there, the air cold and solemn, the scent of polished wood mingling with fear. Mary steps forward, draped in red, the colour of martyrdom, her chin high. The axe falls and you flinch at the sound dull final. Europe gasps. Elizabeth retreats into silence, claiming the execution wasn't her final word. But you see the truth, she did what she had to. You're watching her now alone in her chamber, the fire low, her face carved with grief. She's won, but at a cost. Trust is rarer now, her heart a little harder. This moment changes her and you're feeling it. She's more isolated, her decisions heavier. You're starting to see the queen behind the myth, fierce, yes, but human, carrying scars nobody sees. Before you slip into sleep, hit that subscribe button if Mary's shadow has you gripped. Comment where you're listening, a foggy morning walk maybe, or a quiet dorm room. Next we'll face the Spanish Armada, where Elizabeth proves she's no ordinary queen. For now, let the weight of her choice carry you to rest, knowing she's still got battles to fight. You're in the summer of 1588, and England's air feels electric, charged with the salt of the sea and the weight of coming war. You're standing on the cliffs of Dover, the wind whipping your hair, the channel below churning like a beast waking up. Elizabeth's been queen for 30 years, and now she faces her greatest test, the Spanish Armada. You can smell the tension, gunpowder, tar and fear as Spain, led by King Philip II, sends a fleet to crush Protestant England. Philip, once a suitor vying for Elizabeth's hand, now wants her throne, her faith and her head. You're gripping the edge of your seat, aren't you? This is no ordinary fight, it's a clash of empires. Picture the scene, over 130 Spanish ships bristling with cannons slicing through the waves. They call it the Invincible Armada, a floating fortress carrying 30,000 men all set to invade. England's outmatched, fewer ships, fewer men, and a treasury so dry it's practically coughing dust. You're in London, the streets buzzing with panic, the taverns filled with grim whispers, "We're done for." But Elizabeth, she's not trembling. You're catching her in a war room map strewn across the table, her advisors pale as parchment. Her eyes, though, burn with something fierce, resolve sharp as a blade honed by years of dodging plots. She rides to Tilbury, and you're right there with her, the hooves of a horse kicking up mud. The air's sharp with marsh salt and the clank of armour. She's clad in a silver breastplate, her red hair streaming like a banner, and you can't look away. Her troops, a ragtag bunch of farmers and soldiers, stare at her, half-starved but hanging on her every word. She stands tall, her voice cutting through the wind. I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too. You're cheering with them, your heart pounding, because this isn't just a speech, it's defiance, raw and unshakable. The battle's at sea, and you're picturing it, English ships smaller and nimbler darting like wasps around the Spanish giants. You can hear the creak of timbers, the roar of cannons, the shouts of sailors slick with sweat and salt. They harass the Armada in the narrow channel, refusing to let it land. Then at Calais they strike fire ships blazing like comets, scatter the Spanish fleet in chaos. You're holding your breath as storms roll in, battering the Armada as it flees north around Scotland. Waves crash, masts snap, and thousands of men drown in the cold grey sea. By the time it's over, half the Armada's gone wrecked or sunk. England's still standing. You're back in London now, the streets wild with joy. Bells ring, bonfires blaze, and you're caught in the crowd, their cheers warming the night air. Elizabeth's victory isn't just military, it's mythic. You're seeing her in paintings now, her hand on a globe, her gown studded with eyes and ears, like she sees everything, knows everything. She's not just a queen anymore, she's Gloriana England's untouchable icon. You're feeling the shift, the way this moment cements her legend. Spain, the mightiest empire, came for her, and she sent them limping home. But you know it's not over. The war drags on, draining England's coffers, and enemies still lurk France, Scotland, even her own court. You're watching Elizabeth ride back to the palace, her face triumphant but tired. She's proven a woman can rule, can win, but you're starting to see the cost, the weight of a crown that never lifts. Before you drift off, hit that like button if this victory's got your blood pumping. Comment where you're at, a quiet bedroom maybe, or a late-night cafe. Next, we'll walk through her later years where losses pile up and the crown feels heavier. For now, let the echo of her triumph lull you to sleep, knowing she's England's heart and soul. You're in the 1590s now, and Elizabeth's England feels different, less like a golden stage, more like a fading painting. The air in the palace is heavy with old incense and the musty scent of time. Elizabeth's in her 50s, then 60s, and you're watching her move through Whitehall, her steps slower. Her face hidden under layers of white lead makeup. Her red hair's a wig now, piled high with jewels, but her eyes still spark with that old fire. You're starting to feel it though, the weight of years, the toll of ruling alone. The court's still grand, but it's colder, like a fire that's burned too long and left only embers. The Armada's defeat is a decade past, and you're seeing Elizabeth at the height of her power, her face on coins, her name a legend across Europe. But victory's a fleeting guest, and loss is creeping in. You're in her private chamber, the air thick with silence. When news hits William Cecil, her steadiest adviser is gone. His death in 1598 feels like losing a limb. She leans on the wall, her breath catching. Then Robert Dudley, the man who made her laugh like no other, dies suddenly. You're there as she locks herself away, refusing food, her grief a private storm. The court whispers, "She loved him, didn't she?" You're not sure, but you see the pain in her clenched hands. New faces crowd the court, and you're sensing the shift. Young courtiers hungry for power don't know the old rules. Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, is the worst of them, charming, reckless, with eyes that promise trouble. You're watching him swagger into a banquet, his velvet cloak flashing, and Elizabeth indulges him, her smile fond but wary. He's like a son, maybe, or a spark of her younger self. But he oversteps, disobeying orders, botching campaigns. You're in the council room, the air sharp with anger as he storms out defiant. By 1601, he's crossed the line, leading a rebellion against her. You're holding your breath as she signs his death warrant, her quill shaking. Essex's execution leaves a scar. You see it in her eyes, a little less light than before. England's struggling too, and you're feeling the strain. The treasury's bled dry from wars, the harvest failing, and bread's pricier than gold. You're walking London streets where the air smells of sour ale and desperation. The people still love Elizabeth, she's their Gloriana, their warrior queen, but you hear their grumbles, times are hard. The court's less vibrant now, the masks fewer, the dance is slower. You're at one last pageant, the candles flickering, and Elizabeth's there, her gown towering, but her face weary. She's performing, always performing, but you're starting to see the woman beneath the myth, tired alone, carrying a nation on her shoulders. She's refusing to name a successor, and you're getting why. Naming someone means admitting the end, and Elizabeth's not ready to let go. You're in her privy chamber, the fire low as advisers beg her to plan for the future. She snaps her voice sharp. Must is not a word to be used to princes. You're grinning at her stubbornness, but you feel the ache she's clinging to power, to her image, because it's all she's got. The crowns, her husband, her child, her everything. And you're marvelling at how she's held it this long through betrayal, war and heartbreak. You're starting to see the end coming, and it's heavy. The palace is quieter, the laughter forced. Elizabeth's still commanding, but her strength's fading like a candle burning down to wax. You're rooting for her, this queen who's defied kings and empires, but you know time's the one enemy she can't outwit. Before you close your eyes, hit that subscribe button if her resilience has you in awe. Comment where you're at, maybe a moonlit porch or a cosy nook. Next, we'll walk through her final days and the legend she leaves behind. For now, let the soft rhythm of her reign carry you to sleep, knowing she's still fighting to be England's heart. You're in Richmond Palace, early 1603, and the air feels heavy like the world's holding its breath. The corridors are dim, the tapestries sagging under years of dust and secrets. Elizabeth, now 69, is a shadow of the queen who faced down empires. You're close enough to see her, her face caked with white lead makeup, her once fiery hair a brittle wig, her hands gnarled but still gripping the arm of her chair. The court's hushed, the usual clatter of lutes and laughter gone. You're feeling it, aren't you? The end of an era creeping in like winter fog. She's tired, bone-deep tired, and you're watching her withdraw from the world she shaped. The feasts are fewer, the dances a memory. You're in her privy chamber, the fire spitting embers, as she sits for hours staring out the window at the bare trees. Her appetite's gone, she picks at bread, sips broth, her eyes distant. Sometimes she's lost in thought, muttering names from the past, Dudley Cecil, her mother. You're catching glimpses of her mind, sharp, but fraying like a tapestry pulling at the seams. Her ladies-in-waiting hover their whispers soft as moth wings, but even they know the queen's slipping away. She refuses her bed, and you're starting to get why. Lying down feels too final, like admitting defeat. You're picturing her on cushions scattered across the floor, wrapped in white silk, her crown glinting nearby. The air smells of lavender and old parchment, but there's a chill no fire can chase. Her doctors beg her to rest, their voices trembling, but she fixes them with a glare, her voice soft but iron. Must is not a word to be used to princes. You're smiling despite the ache, she's still Elizabeth, stubborn as ever, clinging to the throne with every breath. The succession's a ghost in the room and you're feeling the tension. She's avoided naming an heir for decades, fearing it'd dim her light. You're there when her advisors press her their faces tight with worry. Who'll follow? The court's buzzing with bets. James of Scotland, maybe son of Mary, Queen of Scots. You're holding your breath as Elizabeth, too weak to speak, reportedly points to his name. It's a full-circle twist, isn't it? The son of her rival, the woman she executed, will take her crown. You're sensing no bitterness in her, just acceptance, like she's finally letting go. March 24th, 1603, and you're at her side, the palace so quiet you can hear the Thames lapping outside. She's fading, her breath shallow, her eyes half closed. You're picturing her life flashing by, born in scandal, raised in fear, crowned in doubt, yet ruling like a legend. The end comes softly in her sleep, no drama, no struggle. You're feeling the weight of it as the news spreads, bells toll, black cloth drapes the streets and London weeps. The Tudor dynasty's done, and you're standing in the crowd, your heart heavy, but full knowing you've witnessed the close of a reign that changed everything. Before you drift off, hit that like button if Elizabeth's final stand has you moved. Comment where you're at, a late-night kitchen maybe, or a quiet train ride. Next we'll explore her legacy, how she became more than a queen, a myth that still shines. For now, let the soft toll of her passing carry you to sleep, knowing her story's far from over. You're standing in the wake of Elizabeth's death, spring 1603, but her presence lingers like the scent of rain after a storm. London streets are draped in black, the air heavy with mourning, yet you're sensing something else, a spark that refuses to fade. Elizabeth's gone, but her legend's just beginning, and you're about to see how a queen becomes a myth. Picture the taverns, the churches, the ships sailing out from Dover, her name's on every lip, not as a frail old woman, but as Gloriana, the Virgin Queen who married England and birthed an era. You're hooked, aren't you? This is where history turns to story. You're flipping through time now, seeing her legacy take shape. The Elizabethan age, her age, is already being painted in gold. You're in a printer's shop, the air sharp with ink as books roll out, praising her reign. Poets call her a goddess, a beacon who guided England through storms. You're glancing at portraits, her face ageless, her gown glittering with pearls, her hand on a globe like she owns the world. These aren't just pictures, they're icons crafted to keep her alive. You're starting to get it. She knew her image would outlast her, and she built it brick by brick. Her impact's everywhere, and you're tracing it. England's no longer a backwater, it's a power thanks to her. You're on a ship bound for the New World, the crew toasting her name. The colonies she greenlit, the explorers she backed, they're planting England's flag across oceans. You're in a theatre, the Globe, where Shakespeare's plays echo a court's drama, ambition, betrayal, love. Her reign birthed a cultural explosion, and you're feeling its pulse in every sonnet, every sail unfurled. She didn't just rule, she reshaped a nation's soul. You're noticing the politics too. She balanced a divided country, Protestant and Catholic, with a finesse nobody's matched. You're in a quiet church, the air smelling of wax, where her Church of England still holds sway. No civil war, no religious slaughter. She kept the peace mostly, and you're nodding at her cunning. Her choice to stay unmarried to be England's bride wasn't just personal, it was genius. You're seeing kings and queens after her, from James to Victoria, measuring themselves against her shadow. She set the bar, and it's sky high. Fast forward, and you're in the modern world, her echo still clear. You're passing a statue of her, weathered but proud, or catching her name in a movie, a book, a pub sign. She's not just history, she's a symbol of defiance of a woman who ruled alone in a man's world. You're thinking of leaders today, women breaking ceilings, and you're tracing their grit back to her. She's admired, debated, mythologized, and you're grinning at how she'd love the fuss, probably with that sharp smile of hers. But you're also feeling the human side. She was born in scandal, raised in fear, crowned in doubt. You're picturing her alone in her palace, the fire low, wondering if she'd be enough. She was, and then some. Her reign's a story of resilience, of turning weakness into strength. You're standing in England's heart, the Thames glinting, and you know her spirit's here in the stubborn joy of her people in the nation she forged. She's history's child, and you're proud to have walked her path. Before you close your eyes, hit that subscribe button if Gloriana's legend has you inspired. Comment where you're at, maybe a foggy park or a cozy couch. Next, we'll shift to ancient Egypt, diving into the world of healers and gods. For now, let the glow of Elizabeth's myth lull you to sleep, knowing her voice still sings through time. You're standing on the banks of the Nile, ancient Egypt, where the air's warm and heavy, with the scent of lotus flowers and sun-baked earth. It's thousands of years before hospitals or antibiotics, and you're watching a world where healing's as much a prayer as it is a practice. The river glitters under a sky so blue it hurts, and you're hearing the soft lap of water, the hum of life reeds, rustling ibises calling villagers bathing in the shallows. This is where medicine was born, not in sterile labs, but in a land alive with gods and grit. You're curious, aren't you? Ready to step into a time when health was a gift from the heavens. The Egyptians saw life as a tightrope, and you're feeling their reverence for balance. To them, being well wasn't just about a strong body, it was about harmony with the world, the spirits, the divine. You're picturing a farmer, his hands rough from ploughing, pausing to thank the gods for his strength. Illness. That's a sign. Something's off. The god's anger, the spirit's grudge, or just the body's rhythm gone awry. You're starting to get it healing. Here's not about quick fixes. It's about mending the soul as much as the flesh, and you're intrigued by the depth of it. You're walking toward a temple now, its sandstone walls glowing gold in the sun. The air shifts cooler, laced with myrrh and frankincense. These aren't just places of worship, they're the heart of healing. You're seeing priests in linen robes, their shaved heads gleaming, moving with a calm that feels sacred. They're not doctors in the way you know, but something more part healer, part mystic, whispering incantations as they grind herbs. You're catching the scent of crushed coriander, the faint tang of honey, and you're wondering what stories these remedies hold. Life here's raw, and you're sensing the stakes. Crocodiles lurk in the Nile, sandstorms choke the air, and disease waits in every shadow. Fevers, infections, broken bones from a fall in the fields. Yet there's beauty too. You're watching a woman anoint her skin with jasmine oil, her movements slow and deliberate like she's honouring her body as a temple. People chew mint to sweeten their breath, bathe daily to stay pure. You're struck by their care, their belief that health's a dance between the practical and the divine. This world's medicine is a weave of faith and fact, and you're eager to unravel it. Temples hold secrets, scrolls of cures, rituals to soothe angry gods. You're picturing a healer kneeling before a statue of Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom asking for guidance. Every remedy's a ritual, every illness a puzzle. You're hooked wanting to know how these people turned plants and prayers into survival. Before you drift off, hit that like button if this ancient world's got you curious. Comment where you're at a quiet bedroom maybe, or a starry balcony. Next we'll meet the physician priests and the gods they serve. For now, let the Nile's soft rhythm carry you to sleep, knowing you're in a land where healing's an art. You're back in ancient Egypt inside a temple's cool shadows, where the air smells of burning resin and sacred oils. The Nile's hum is faint now, replaced by the soft chant of priests echoing off stone walls carved with hieroglyphs. You're standing among the Sunu, the physician priest's men who don't just heal bodies but bridge the gap between mortals and gods. They're not in white coats, but in linen robes, their hands steady as they mix remedies, their eyes calm with a wisdom that feels older than the pyramids. You're drawn in, aren't you? This is medicine as a holy act, and you're ready to see how it works. These Sunu are more than healers. They're scholars, mystics, servants of the divine. You're watching one, his bald head catching the torchlight, as he unrolls a papyrus scroll, its ink faded but alive with secrets. He's chanting, his voice low and rhythmic, invoking Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing. You're picturing Thoth, his beak sharp, his eyes knowing, said to have gifted medicine to humanity, his sacred books hidden deep in temple vaults. The priest's prayer feels like a key unlocking divine help for the sick, and you're feeling the weight of his faith. But not all gods are gentle, and you're sensing a shift in the air, something fiercer. The priest turns to a statue of Sekhmet, her lioness face carved in black granite, her eyes glinting like fire. Sekhmet's the goddess of plague and protection, a double-edged blade who can unleash disease or snatch it away. You're hearing the priest's voice tremble as he offers her prayers, his hands scattering incense to calm her wrath. You're getting chills, she's awe-inspiring, her power raw and untamed. The Sunu know one wrong word could anger her, so they memorize rituals, hundreds of them, to channel her healing strength. Healing here starts with the gods, and you're seeing it unfold. You're at a patient's side, the air thick with myrrh, as the priest anoints a sacred statue, its stone cool under his fingers. He chants over a bowl of Nile water, making it holy, then sprinkles it on the sick man's brow. You're catching the patient's hope, his eyes fixed on the priest like he's a lifeline. Sometimes healing comes in dreams. You're picturing the sick sleeping in temple chambers, hoping Thoth or Sekhmet whispers a cure in the night. It's not just medicine, it's communion, and you're marvelling at the blend of spirit and skill. But don't think it's all mysticism. You're noticing the priest's tools, bronze knives, obsidian hooks, linen strips neatly rolled. He's practical too, cleaning wounds with wine, wrapping them with honey-soaked bandages. You're smelling the sharp tang of alcohol, the sweet stickiness of honey, and you're impressed by his precision. He's learned from battlefield cuts and childbirth fevers, his hands steady as he works. You're starting to see the balance divine guidance meets human grit, and it's saving lives in a world where death's always close. You're hooked on these Sanu, their quiet power, their dance between earth and sky. Before you slip into sleep, hit that subscribe button if their sacred craft has you intrigued. Comment where you're listening, a cozy nook maybe, or a dawn-lit kitchen. Next, we'll dive into the Ebers Papyrus, a scroll that holds Egypt's medical secrets. For now, let the soft chant of the priests lull you, knowing you're in a world where healing's a bridge to the gods. You're deep in an ancient Egyptian temple, the air cool and thick with the scent of dried papyrus and burning myrrh. The flickering torchlight dances on sandstone walls, casting shadows over a priest's hands as he unrolls a scroll so long it could wrap around a sarcophagus. This is the Ebers Papyrus, a treasure of healing wisdom penned over 3,500 years ago. And you're leaning in your eyes wide, because this isn't just a document, it's a window into how the Egyptians wrestled with life and death. The scroll's hieratic script curls like the Nile itself, and you're feeling the weight of centuries in its fragile folds. This papyrus is a healer's Bible, and you're marvelling at its scope, over 700 remedy spells and surgical notes, covering everything from eye infections to broken bones. You're picturing a Sunu priest, his linen robe brushing the floor, reading it by lamplight, his voice soft as he decodes cures for stomach pain or hair loss. One recipe calls for cloves and honey ground into a paste smeared on burns to soothe the skin. Another mixes onions and resin steeped in wine to ease a cough. You're smelling the sharp tang of herbs, the sticky sweetness of honey, and you're struck by how practical it is, yet it's laced with magic too. You're noticing a section on the metu and it's got you curious. The Egyptians believed these were channels in the body carrying air blood and life itself. You're picturing the priest tracing invisible lines on a patient's arm, his fingers gentle, sensing the flow of energy. It's not modern anatomy, but it's closer hint they were peering into the body's secrets without microscopes. You're impressed by their curiosity, the way they watched, recorded, and remembered. One passage describes a diabetes-like illness thirst that won't quit urine that flows like a river, and you're blinking at how sharp their eyes were. But it's not all science, and you're feeling the sacred pulse of it. Some cures need chants spoken with the rhythm of a heartbeat calling on Thoth's wisdom, or Sekhmet's mercy. You're seeing the priest draw protective symbols on a patient's skin, his reed pen steady, or bury an amulet under moonlight to banish fever. The papyrus blends fact and faith like a woven reed mat, herbs for the body, spells for the soul. You're getting it now to them. Healing wasn't just fixing flesh, it was restoring harmony with the gods. This scroll's a living thing, and you're picturing it studied in temple schools, passed from master to apprentice. You're touching its surface in your mind, the linen rough under your fingers, and you're awed by its fragility, yet it's survived, whispering Egypt's wisdom to us across millennia. You're hooked, wanting to know how these words turned into action, how priests used them to mend lives. Before you drift off, hit that like button if this ancient scroll's got you fascinated. Comment where you're at, a quiet cafe maybe, or a moonlit bedroom. Next we'll see these remedies in practice, where hands meet herbs to heal. For now, let the soft rustle of papyrus lull you to sleep, knowing you're holding a piece of eternity. You're in the heart of ancient Egypt, a healing chamber, where the air's warm with the scent of honey and crushed herbs. The Nile's hum is distant, but you're focused on a Sunu priest, his hands steady as he tends a patient, a farmer with a gash from a sickle, his face tight with pain. This isn't the realm of chants or amulets. This is where medicine gets real, where blood and bone demand skill over spells. You're watching closely, aren't you? The Egyptians weren't just dreamers, they were doers, and their hands-on healing's about to blow your mind. The priest starts with the wound, and you're smelling the sharp bite of wine as he pours it over the cut. It's not for drinking, this is their antiseptic cleansing the gash with a sting that makes the farmer wince. Next comes honey thick and golden smeared on with a wooden spatula. You're catching its sweet sticky scent, and you're intrigued. Honey's not just food, It's a natural bacteria killer sealing the wound like a shield. The priest wraps it in linen soft as a whisper, and you're nodding at the care. These aren't mummy bandages. They're clean, sometimes steeped in herbs to soothe the skin. You're moving to another patient now, a woman with a broken arm from a fall in the fields. The priest probing gently, his fingers reading the bone's misalignment like a map. You're hearing the faint crackle of reeds as he carves a splint, tying it with linen strips to hold the arm steady. He massages the swelling with a cool paste of crushed lotus root, the air tinged with its earthy scent. You're impressed by the precision. No x-rays, no machines, just eyes and hands trained by years of watching bodies break and mend. Surgery's rare, but you're catching a glimpse of it. A man with a swollen abscess limps in his face, grey with pain. The priest's tools glint in the torchlight, bronze knives, obsidian hooks cleaned with fire to keep them pure. You're holding your breath as he lances the boil, quick and clean draining pus with a steady hand. He packs the wound with myrrh, its resinous scent filling the air, and you're amazed myrrh's antibacterial a secret they learned from wounds that festered or healed. Sometimes they cauterize pressing hot metal to stop bleeding, chanting softly like the heat's a prayer. Pain's a problem, and you're seeing how they dull it. The priest mixes mandrake root and poppy extract into beer, the brew bitter, but calming. You're picturing the patient sip it, his eyes growing heavy, slipping into a dreamlike haze. No anesthesia like today, but this is close, and you're marvelling at their ingenuity. Childbirth gets the same care. You're imagining a midwife, her hands slick with oil, easing a mother through labour cleaning with Nile water to keep infection at bay. Every move's deliberate, learned from generations of life and loss. You're struck by the calm of it all. The priest works slowly, his voice low, like he's soothing the soul as much as the body. You're smelling the mix of blood herbs and incense, and you're feeling the sacred in the practical. These healers were surgeons before the word existed. Their tools simple, but their skill profound. Before you slip into sleep, hit that subscribe button if their steady hands have you in awe. Comment where you're at, a foggy morning walk maybe, or a quiet dorm. Next, we'll dive into the magic of amulets and spells where healing meets the unseen. For now, let the soft rhythm of their work carry you to rest, knowing you're in a world where every touch is a prayer. You're still in ancient Egypt inside a temple's healing chamber, where the air hums with the scent of burning incense and the faint rustle of papyrus. The torchlight flickers, casting shadows on walls carved with gods' faces, and you're watching a Sunu priest, his linen robe, brushing the stone floor as he leans over a feverish child. This isn't about herbs or bandages now, it's about the unseen, the magic that weaves through every cure. You're feeling the mystery, aren't you? In this world, illness isn't just a failing body, it's a spirit out of step, and healing means calling on powers beyond the mortal. The priest's chanting, his voice a low steady hum like the Nile's current. You're catching words meant for Isis, the mother goddess, her nurturing presence invoked to soothe the child's soul. Or maybe it's Bez, the dwarf god with a lion's mane, who wards off nightmares and disease with his fierce grin. You're hearing the rhythm, smooth and unbroken, and it's mesmerizing, each syllable a thread pulling the patient back to balance. The air feels charged like a storm's brewing, but it's calm too, like the chants cleansing the room of invisible shadows. Now you're noticing the amulets, and they're drawing you in. The priest ties a small scarab of carved carnelian around the child's neck, its beetle shape gleaming in the dim light. You're learning it's no trinket, it symbolizes renewal life, reborn from the earth's embrace. Another amulet, the Eye of Horus, dangles from a leather cord, its blue faience cool to the touch, promising protection from harm. You're picturing an ankh, the looped cross tucked beneath the child's wrappings, whispering of eternal vitality. These charms aren't just pretty, they're alive with magic blessed in rituals, where priests burn myrrh and chant under starlight. You're watching a spell unfold, and it's gripping. The priest writes Thoth's name on a slip of papyrus, his reed pen scratching softly. He burns it, the smoke curling like a prayer, or maybe folds it into a cup of water for the child to drink, binding the god's wisdom to the cure. You're seeing him draw a protective circle on the floor, chalk dust clinging to his fingers, or paint symbols on the child's skin to block evil spirits. You're smelling the sharp tang of resin, the faint sweetness of lotus oil, and you're struck by how every act feels deliberate sacred. Even medicines carry magic, and you're fascinated. A poultice for a snakebite, honey and myrrh pressed into the wound, comes with a chant. Come out poison may restrike your heart. You're hearing the words steady and fierce, and you're realizing they're as vital as the salve itself. The The Egyptians didn't split science from spirit. To them, healing the body meant soothing the soul. You're picturing the priest calm, his hands moving with purpose, his voice a bridge to the divine. It's not superstition, it's belief, and it's powerful. You're hooked on this dance of magic and medicine, the way it weaves the seen and unseen into one. Before you drift off, hit that like button if these ancient spells have you enchanted. Comment where you're at a quiet park bench maybe, or a cozy attic. Next we'll explore the lasting echo of Egypt's healers, how their wisdom still whispers today. For now, let the soft cadence of their chants carry you to sleep, knowing you're in a world where every cure is a prayer. You're standing at the edge of ancient Egypt's world, the Nile's glitter fading into history, but its healing wisdom still lingers like the scent of myrrh after a ritual. You're looking back across millennia from the sunlit temples to today's sterile clinics, and you're seeing threads of Egypt's medicine woven into time. Their blend of herbs, hands, and hymns wasn't just a way to heal, it was a philosophy, a belief that body and soul are one. You're curious, aren't you? How did these ancient healers with their papyrus scrolls and sacred chants shape the medicine we know today? You're picturing Greek scholars like Hippocrates hunched over Egyptian texts in Alexandria's great library, the air thick with dust and ink. They studied the ebbers, papyrus learned from its remedies for fever or fractures, and you're nodding at the connection. Egypt's ideas of hygiene observation and herbal cures became the roots of Greek medicine. Galen, centuries later, built on those same ideas, dissecting bodies to map the Metu Channel's echoes. You're struck by a word, pharmacy. It comes from Egypt's Perank, the house of life where healers guarded their secrets. You're feeling the weight of that legacy, like holding a stone worn smooth by time. Their practices ripple forward and you're tracing them. Honey slathered on wounds to kill bacteria is still studied today. Scientists marvel at its power. Willow bark chewed for pain holds, salicin the seed of modern aspirin. You're smelling garlic in your mind, crushed by priests to strengthen the body, and you're grinning because it's still in your kitchen fighting colds. The Egyptians' insistence on cleanliness, washing wounds with Nile water, sterilizing tools with fire, feels like a blueprint for today's ORs. You're amazed at their foresight, how they saw patterns in illness without a single microscope. But it's their philosophy that hits you hardest. You're picturing a Sunu priest, his hands gentle on a patient's brow, listening not just to breaths, but to dreams. They believed healing was present stillness, intention, a story to unravel. You're seeing echoes of that in modern medicine, where a doctor's quiet moment with a patient can mean as much as a pill. The Egyptians treated the soul-sore illness as a message from the heavens, and you're feeling that wisdom in today's holistic care, where mind and body aren't split apart. You're standing in a modern hospital, now the air sharp with antiseptic, but you're hearing Egypt's heartbeat, the soft chant of a priest, the rustle of papyrus, the faith that healing's sacred. Their legacy isn't just in herbs or tools, it's in the idea that to heal is to honour life. You're picturing a doctor holding a patient's hand, a nurse whispering comfort, and you're seeing those ancient healers nodding from the shadows. Their world's gone, but their lessons endure, carved in the quiet corners of every clinic. Before you close your eyes, hit that subscribe button. If Egypt's timeless wisdom has you in awe, comment where you're at, a late-night study session maybe, or a foggy morning commute. Next, we'll shift to Berlin, where a divided city tells a story of resilience. For now, let the soft echo of Egypt's healers lull you to sleep, knowing their touch still lingers in every act of care. You're in Berlin, spring 1945, and the city's a broken skeleton, its air thick with ash and the sour tang of rubble. Bombs have gutted streets, leaving jagged walls where homes once stood, and you're stepping over shattered glass, hearing the eerie silence where laughter used to live. The war's over, Nazi Germany's done, but victory's a bitter taste, more like survival than triumph. You're feeling the weight of it, aren't you? This isn't peace, it's a pause, and Berlin's about to become the stage for a new kind of battle. The Allied powers, United States, United Kingdom, Soviet Union, France, sweep in their boots, crunching on debris. You're at their meeting, a smoke-filled room smelling of stale coffee and tension. They're not friends, these allies, just uneasy partners bound by a common enemy now gone. Their pens carve Germany into 4 zones, each one theirs to govern. But Berlin's trickier. It's deep in the Soviet zone, yet they split it too, a city sliced like a pie. You're picturing the map lines drawn with cold precision, and you're sensing the cracks already forming. You're walking Berlin streets now where skeletal buildings lean like